I'm joined today by Eitan Fischberger. He's an Israeli writer, journalist, and he's an analyst known for his sharp insight into the Middle East geopolitics, U.S. Israeli relations, and the global disinformation war. Our topic for tonight is going to be so important because you've been featured in many international media outlets, and you are a leading voice in exposing propaganda networks, especially talking about Muslim Brotherhood and also the Iranian influence in the Middle East and their campaign in the West as well. Eitan, you are most welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I'm gonna start with the highlight our interview with the Muslim Brotherhood, how they reject national identity and pursue a global caliphate. The US has put them on the FTO or like foreign terrorist organization, but Europe still hesitating to classify them as a terrorist organization. Can you tell us about your work on exposing their activities?
Sure. So the Muslim Brotherhood actually has not been registered as an FTO. There are multiple bills in Congress that have been suggested saying, okay, we need to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as an FTO. We need to designate them as a, whatever they could be designated as, they should be designated as because their influence is overwhelming and all-consuming and multi-sectoral. Their influences in academia, in the media, their influences, in the political class even. And I think that the Middle East, ironically, because the Muslim Brotherhood originates from the Middle East, so maybe not ironically, maybe it actually makes sense. The
Yeah.
Middle East is aware of the threat that the Brotherhood poses to themselves and to the West, and so many Middle Eastern countries have designated them, and African countries have designated them as terrorist organizations. The
Yeah.
U.S. and Europe are way behind, unfortunately, in that sense. Europe seems to be waking up. There are a couple of lone congressmen and senators that are, beating this drum
Mhm.
consistently, which is great. But I think there needs to be certainly a more
Yeah.
concerted effort.
This will lead me to talk about the role of the UAE. They had an initiative called the Center for Sawab. It's pushing global awareness about ideological threat that the Muslim Brotherhood can, and they are infiltrated now in many societies. So, how we can spread awareness about their role?
Well, first of all, I think that the Sawab Center that you mentioned is fantastic, and if I recall correctly, maybe I'm wrong, but it's a joint initiative between the UAE and the U.S., which is wonderful that they're collaborating on an initiative like this. And I think that we need to, first of all, amplify voices like that, accounts like that, reports like that. They had a report that came out earlier this week where they said the 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 Muslim Brotherhood's agenda
Hmm.
is it subverts the nation state model, which is what the Western civilization is built off of. And it is extremely similar in that sense, in this sort of revolutionary, subversive sense, with the radical left agenda that we're seeing across college campuses in the United States and across the fringe of the left. And I think that it's important for us to highlight that. I mean, the Sawab Center highlighted that, which is phenomenal, but we need to amplify that research. We need to get the word out. We need to have voices like you, Maria,
Yeah.
and people in this sphere.
Yeah.
If we don't consistently beat this drum, nothing's gonna move.
Yeah, you're right about designating yet the Muslim person in the U.S. There is a bill under the S2293.
Yeah,
It's a bill, it's an to designation in 2025. It was introduced by Ted Cruz, but I think
exactly.
the Trump administration is supporting that. Let's talk about the Israel and how now, after the visit of and the Gaza plan, after the visits of Prime Minister Netanyahu, how do you see the evolving of this relationship? And they agree on a solution. How do you assess the Trump comprehensive plan for Gaza?
So first of all, I think, thank God the U.S. Israel relationship is as strong as ever. Oftentimes you'll hear leaking in the media about these tensions between Netanyahu and Trump, and I'm sure they have disagreements like every world leader has with every other world leader on every subject, because that's the way the world works. But thank God their relationship is very strong. It's all smiles all the time. People like to portray the U.S. and Israel sometimes as having opposing agendas and opposing incentives and ideals and policies. That's almost never the case. The U.S. and Israel, the strategies align, the agenda aligns. It's a relationship built on mutual interest and mutual ideas. And I think that the it's reflected in the fact that there's such overwhelming support for the American plan here in Israel. I
Yeah.
just saw a poll that 72% of Israelis are widely in favor of the plan. 7%, only 7% are opposed to the plan, and
Hmm.
the rest of them are, the guys that are undecided or can't or just don't know enough about the issue. But here in Israel, there's overwhelming support for President Trump and support for the plan. Is
Hmm.
it a perfect plan? No, of course it's not a perfect plan. But the option for a perfect plan went out the door on October 8th
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
situation that we found ourselves in, there's no such thing as a perfect plan.
Hmm.
So there are things in the plan that I'm not happy with. There are things in the plan that I'm sure even the
But,
president, I mean, maybe it's
but
hearsay, but maybe the
yeah,
president himself isn't happy with because that's just how it
exactly.
is.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it is
Yeah.
far and away the best option that we could think of.
Yeah, it has to be realistic. Do you think that this is
Exactly.
it's like can be achievable? Do you think that President Trump understands Israel's needs and red lines, especially against the terrorist activities going in the region through Hezbollah and Iran's proxy?
I think he's definitely aware of the red lines, and like I mentioned before, like I alluded to, I think that the red lines are very, very synchronized, right? It's
Mhm.
not a coincidence that the United States backed and then joined Israel in its strikes against Iran
Mhm.
and has supported Israel's efforts against Hezbollah throughout the war and against Hamas and against the Houthis in Yemen. It's the red lines are the same red lines, and I think that the the I think that the plan will I think that it will happen. I think the whether Hamas agrees or not, the plan will happen. I don't remember the specifics exactly because it's a big 20-point plan and it's maybe point 17 or 18 or something. But it basically said even if Hamas doesn't agree to the plan,
There is
parts
a
of the
war.
plan will be implemented.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
gonna
and
happen.
and the war will end Hamas. There is no choice anymore to resist, and there is no. I mean, Iran is weak, and my question is about how can you feel how that Iran is weak now, and could has Israel been carrying a tough confrontation like strikes you talked about? To weaken this regime or just we are containing the situation right now?
I think it's more than just containing. I think that Israel dealt a really strategic. It's containment plus sending them back years and years and years of their nuclear development and their ballistic missile development, and also in the Middle East, as I'm sure you know, it's a lot of what happens is contingent on reputation and how strong people believe a regime is. And so Israel dealt such a destructive and effective blow against the Iranian regime that it really diminished their standing in the region. A lot of the people, a lot of the terror groups, a lot of the proxies, a lot of the allies that thought, oh yeah, we can rely on Iran. Iran is this big powerhouse in the region. It's not like that anymore. It's not like that anymore. And
So,
you can see everyone moving towards that direction, you know?
so we can say that Hezbollah is not ready for a wide war. Is he bluffing since he is threatening? But what is his capacity right now?
I think Hezbollah obviously remains a threat, and I think that Israel, especially since October 7th, knows to never release your finger from the trigger, always be ready. So is Hezbollah about to launch a large attack on Israel tomorrow? I can't imagine. I mean, God forbid. But we will never forget the lessons of October 7th. We will never be caught flat-footed again. We will never be caught off guard. I know people that are serving in the military, and they tell me that everyone is locked, everyone is ready. Um, the Israeli public as well is ready, despite almost 2 years now, just about 2 years of this terrible war, this ongoing
Yeah,
war. It's been,
yeah.
730
But
days of October 7th.
anyway,
We're still ready.
yeah, even if Hezbollah is like dangerous and they like to go with big adventures that they cannot handle the result of it. They are now very busy inside Lebanon, inside they don't, like, there is some pressure to be infiltrated in our society and be part of the Lebanese peaceful situation. Now
That's true.
Iran is signaling that they want to do investment and negotiation with the U.S. How do you read this declaration? Are they serious? Are they bluffing? Are they, as usual, using taqiyya? Do they see that? Is it a trap? Are they trying to? Do they think that people are like naive to trust them and believe them?
The Islamic Republic, Iran, they said that. That's funny coming from them. No, they certainly can't be trusted. I'm sure that they do want to enter back into the world stage and be integrated because their economy is in ruin. Like I said, Israel degraded them militarily enormously. The United States destroyed the last nuclear facility in Fordo. Of course now that they actually felt the repercussions of their nefarious influence and agenda in the region. Yeah, of course they want to try to reintegrate into the world. I
Mhm.
think that we're not even close to be ready to reintegrate them yet. And we would need to see total fund. I mean, I don't even know what we would need to see. We would need to see either regime change or just reform at like a really, really fundamental level in order to fully reintegrate them into, the world economy and things like that, and to the community of nations. So I don't think we're not even close to there.
Okay. What about inside Israel? You live there and you know more than everyone, I mean, from outside. How do you think that the leadership of Israel is handling, like, how they explain if there is a war, if they want to strike Iran, if they want to bomb in Syria? What do they explain to their people, the goals
Yeah.
of this war in the world?
So Israel, this country that I love so much, we have terrible PR. We cannot explain ourselves to the world. There's a disconnect that we're not able to sort of overcome. Uh, I do what I can on social media, but I think that the government has certainly signaled that it's willing and it's ready and it's actually taking steps um, to start actually engaging in this arena.
Yeah.
In Israel, the most important thing for Israelis is first, let's make sure that we're alive. And that every day that Iran doesn't nuke us into oblivion, that's a
Yeah.
victory.
It's
And
lot,
then worry about what the world thinks of
it's
us. But
lot
they
of
don't understand that it's actually really important what the
It's
world thinks of
lots
us.
of tension. Are you part of the people or the influencers that Netanyahu signed, like the PR, $7,000 per?
Oh, no. By the way, that number is totally bogus. It's like I think it's about
This is too
450.
much, yeah.
It's 7,000. I mean, that's an obscene amount of money. No, it's like 450, I think I actually looked at the numbers and the articles, they obviously get everything wrong because the media has an agenda and we can talk about that. But it's about 450 to $750 for a post, which is pretty standard. I spoke to people in the PR world. That's pretty standard for
Yeah,
influencers. And listen, every country does it. Israel's just the one that actually declares that they're going to do it. So,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
But
it is
this
what
is
it is.
like, is this like, it's like spreading fake news or just like saying the truth? What is it?
I think it's more just like you said, spreading the truth. I feel like there's a big difference between sort of these astroturf narratives that you see online, crazy conspiracies, which are clearly coming from coordinated disinformation campaigns, which is an arena that I'm definitely an expert in. That would be one arena that I can talk a lot about. But it's very different than people just spreading the truth. I was in Gaza. I embedded in Gaza briefly for a couple hours a few months ago. I filmed all the thousands and millions of tons of aid that were piling up in Gaza that the UN was refusing to distribute. And people said I was engaging in propaganda and disinformation. That's just me showing what reality is. So I think that Israel obviously just wants to better utilize, the abilities that they have and to utilize the means at our disposal and to try to get the word out, not just in traditional media, but in social media as well. That's
Yeah.
what it strikes me as.
Well, how do you see the Arab world in the future regarding like agreement or Abraham Accords with Israel? Do you think with Saudi Arabia it could happen? Are the Gulf state, even Sultanate Oman, they are not in. Qatar, they are not in. After the bombing, it's become very difficult. So, is there any hope for partnership with Israel? Lebanon, for example, Iraq.
I think there's definitely a lot of potential there, especially because, the Gaza has been such a sticking point over the last 2 years. There was so much momentum in the Abraham Accords a few years ago, and then October 7th and Hamas and Iran really put a damper on the momentum. I think that it'll definitely pick up. I think it's already been picking up behind the scenes. I think that once Trump's 20-point plan is implemented, I think that will galvanize the other states to do it as well. I think that Trump's executive order that he just signed in order to provide security
Qatar.
guarantees to Qatar, I
Yeah.
think that might actually incentivize Saudi Arabia to say, well, wait a minute, we want something, big like this as well. We want some carrots as well.
Yeah.
And then Trump, I think, might say something like, okay, well then let's join the Abraham Accords. And then I think there's probably more going on behind the scenes than we realize, but I could definitely see a situation where it would play out like that, where you see the Saudis within 6 months joining the Accords,
Oh,
presuming the war in Gaza is over.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, after the success of this plan, what role do you see emerging for emerging power like Turkey and Russia in the Middle East, shaping a new chapter there?
Turkey, Turkey, to be honest, I think could be some trouble. I think that Turkey still, from what I understand, they do back Trump's 20-point plan because obviously the U.S.-Turkey relationship is very important to Turkey, and so Turkey wouldn't want to go against the plan. But there are still lots of Hamas offices in Turkey. They still support the terror group. I very closely follow Turkish state media like TRT World and Anadolu Agency, and they're still pumping out, Hamas propaganda regularly. So I think that there would need to be a lot more movement on their end in
Mm-mm.
order for them to sort of have a positive role, a more positive role in the region. But it's the Middle East, so things are kind of crazy here in a fun way and in an
Okay.
exciting way, and
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully it'll happen.
At the end, yes, I think Egypt is involved. Jordan is supporting. I think this is will end lots of conflict. I mean, this is very. Everybody likes President Trump because he's a man who wants to. He ended 7 wars until now, so
Yeah.
it's a big achievement. If we talk about names like Tony Blair, President Trump, and all the people are involved or the leaders are involved in this plan, how you can read it from the appearance without discussing the point by point? How do you see the impact of having a council for peace and this leadership?
I think it's great. I mean, I think unfortunately the Palestinian Authority and of course Hamas have exhibited a fundamental incapability of governing themselves effectively, of governing themselves without having to resort to terrorism and funding terrorism and incentivizing terrorism. So I think that a council, obviously, you know, manned and I think chaired, right, by President Trump himself
Yeah, yeah.
would be phenomenal because he's obviously the deal maker and the peacemaker. I think Tony Blair will have a positive role, and I think that it's really good that you'll have multilateral Arab states. I don't know which ones are going to be involved. I don't know if they said it yet. Maybe they did. But having them involved as well, I think is really good because having multiple stakeholders involved will then mitigate the influence of actors like Hamas
And
and like
yeah,
Iran having an ability
yeah.
to actually shape what's happening in Gaza. So I
Hmm.
think it's a good move.
Eitan, thank you so much. I'm so glad to have you, and thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you for having me.